A paradigm is a set of beliefs, images, concepts, and structures that govern the way we think about something. Paradigms change when the previous paradigm no longer expresses or addresses the constantly shifting reality we are in. A way of thinking which might have felt threatening at one time may now appear as the only way forward. I believe we are at a critical juncture in our society where we may have to adopt a new set of beliefs, values, and systems in order to effect real change in ourselves and in our world. The first thing we do in forming a new paradigm is to take a critical look at a story that is framing our life. Stories are very powerful. They give people direction, values, vision, and inspiration. Stories reveal who we are, where we come from, where we are going. Stories help us to understand what comes next and what direction we should take. While we all have stories that answer those questions on a personal level, a framing story dictates the general beliefs of a culture, a nation, a religion, and even humanity as a whole. Our growing list of global crises, together with the inability of our political, economical, and scientific communities to address them effectively, give us strong evidence that our world's dominant framing story is falling apart. The story we are currently telling says that the purpose of life is to accumulate an abundance of possessions and to maximize the greatest amount of pleasure that we can in our very short lives. Our current framing story puts us into a life and death competition with each other. In such a position, we will have little reason to manage our consumption. We have even less reason to seek reconciliation or to look for nonviolent resolutions to our conflicts. As Christians, we can choose to live a different story. It is a story that was given to us at the very beginning of creation. This story tells us that we are free and responsible creatures living in a creation made by a good, wise, and loving God, and that our Creator wants us to pursue virtue, collaboration, peace, and mutual care for one another so that our lives can have profound meaning. To live this story, we must align ourselves with God's wisdom, character, and will for us. Then our society would take a radically different direction, and our world will become a very different place. What will help us and sustain us during this paradigm shift from one story to another is prayer. We need some sort of contemplative practice that helps us to free ourselves from the fear that drives our need to seek comfort in material things, sensual pleasures, and the denigration of our neighbors. It is my hope that these short meditations will aid your contemplative prayer by focusing on what is going on around us and within us. Deep, thoughtful prayer that stills the many distracting voices that clamor for our attention and help us to connect to the presence of the divine that lives in the deep silence of our being, can help us to discern what actions to take when we confront the systemic injustices that we all face. It will support us as we seek a path forward for healing during this pandemic. It will help us to respect those with whom we differ and to pursue unity in our world. We will find our way if we are able to free some of the energy we spend on self-protection and direct it towards others to make their way easier and their lives more abundant. If our prayer can tune into the whispers of our heart as we seek to discover the universal truth and follow its dictates, That truth will lead us to love and the perpetuation of peace. It can soothe the bitterness and strife that is so much a part of our present story. If we can commit ourselves to the work of love and to the revolutionary work of nonviolent resistance against evil, if we seek the God of eternity and find his love in our own soul, then we will be able to spread that love so that it will embed this world of ours with goodness. To move forward, we must release what we hold inside. We must release the bitterness, everything that harbors division, and hold on to only the peace and love that we find in our hearts. Our faith story already assures us that the battle of good to overcome evil is already won. Our faith can help us to choose wisely when confronting evil and to be less afraid when it is our time to stand up and speak out against injustice. If we follow the path of truth, we will shine like a beacon of hope for others, burning brightly with the love of God that has been poured into creation. If we can manifest God's love and the affirmation of our neighbor, even in the smallest of ways, we can help build a world community that will finally be at peace with itself. Only some form of prayer, of quiet stillness that dips into the unconscious, where all of our wounds, angers, and fears lie hidden. Only this can change people for good. It will help us to sustain and deepen the short-term wisdom that we have learned in great love and in great suffering.